Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. This week we're going to talk about some kind of recent updates on the DC universe as a whole. We know that the plans moving forward, some somewhat mixed signals that we're getting. Zack Snyder is apparently not involved in DC anymore, and he's 100% okay with it. And then James Gunn doing what he does best, going to Twitter and attacking people for lying. So lots of fun stuff to talk about, but let's go right into it. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Long time no see, Taylor.
Been what, less than 24 hours?
I think we should check in more often. I feel like I can give you updates in my games. Yeah, I like it.
I definitely do. I know your wife is always giving us crap that when we do check in, we don't check in about anything of substance.
No, I have no idea what's going on in your
life.
Yeah, we're gonna talk for however long today. I still won't know anything about how your baby's doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's his 16-month of a live date.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's Mazel Tov. Congratulations. He's a thriving young lad.
He is a thriving young lad. He's a thriving young lad. But he is also a giant handful. He's way ahead. He's in the 90th, up in the 90s percentile of literally everything of cognition, of size, of height. He's not a fat baby. He's just a tall, lengthy little baby.
If you took him to that Pokemon guy by the fountain at your school, he could judge what size the baby is for you. He'd be like, this baby's magnificent.
Yeah. He's huge, but not overweight. You have done good. Yeah. But no, he's a battle. He's very, very independent, but also very codependent. He wants everything handed to him, but he also doesn't want you to be too far away from him.
Sure.
He's like, let me do it, but stay here. I want to hug your leg while I'm doing this. So
I picture him like an Eevee. I picture him like a real life Eevee. He's real needy, but he's going to grow up, and then you get to choose which path you want to go with him.
Yeah, he's going to be great. And speaking of Pokemon, I mean, obviously the new one came out. You and I have talked about it. We've both been playing a lot of it. Aside from the glaring technical issues with the janky shadows and the glitchiness, the game is pretty great. I really hope that they patch this thing soon, because some of those issues, I can ignore them, but I don't know how long I could ignore them.
They did a really the mission system is really fun and simple. It just gives you a lot to do, and you feel like you're making good progress in the world. But it is so janky. I mean, it's not as bad. You know, what's funny is I played Death Stranding before that got patched, and that was parts of it were almost near unplayable. This is still fine. I mean, all the core mechanics are there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
There's a few other little issues that I have with it. I think it's all the progress they made with Legend Arceus. It's I feel like the team that were making these two games weren't talking to each other, because they had the same ideas, but the Legends team did a better job at it.
I feel like there's all of these ideas that are not fully implemented yet. I like the ride, the main gimmick of the game of the legendary Pokemon that you're riding around, but the fact that they can't be on your team and stuff like that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, it gets rid of all the HM fiasco of I'm just going to keep a Bidoof on my team and just teach him everything. That's not in existence in this game, which is pretty great.
But that's hold on. If we talk Pokemon, we're going to talk Pokemon. Should we talk about? We told everyone we're going to talk about.
We'll talk about that another day.
Okay.
We'll talk about that another day. But by the way, this is my man.
Look at
from
that
about
guy.
An hour ago, before his nap. He's got a quesadilla in his hand, but he didn't want me to get too far away from him. So he had the dog next to him in case he dropped anything, and then you had me right there in case he wanted more quesadilla.
Sure.
So,
you know, the dog and you both know your place in that household.
Yeah, I provide the food. He cleans up the messes. The dog cleans up the messes, and yeah, it's wonderful.
You're like a Harvest Moon character, except who only make quesadillas.
Yeah, I don't farm or do anything of substance. I just make quesadillas for the child. So I know a lot of people were. It's been a few weeks since we've talked about DC, and I know a lot of people were upset about it, and I'm totally fine with that, because I wanted us to have more to talk about before we talked about it. I mean, we did the Star Wars show. We had a couple of unfortunate deaths hit the nerd community that we wanted to cover first. We also had our interviews with Sam Benjamin and Andrew List from A-List Productions, and we did kind of briefly touch on these things as we were talking to those two people, but we haven't really gone in depth of what's been going on with DC.
Black Adam performed the way they thought it was going to perform, right?
Yeah.
It's on track. It did its money. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, and I thought it was even funny. It was Dwayne Johnson called out IGN yesterday, like specifically IGN, because they made this big old headline like, "Oh, did you see Black Panther made more money in 2 weeks than Black Adam did?" And then he's like, "We are a new IP. We are in our infancy. That's part of a long-standing franchise for the last 10 years."
100%. They're not comparable movies at all.
Not comparable at all. It's like when Man of Steel first came out. Man of Steel did not make a lot of money, but it still birthed a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people need to kind of put things in perspective. It's made its money. It's going to keep making some money. It's going to make some home release money, and it's going to move forward. They're not just going to kill the whole franchise. They're obviously going to retool some stuff, but I think going forward, having the right people behind the scenes, having the right producers, it'll be a much smoother ride, and it won't be another 15 years till we see another Black Adam movie. So in the last few weeks, we've had Jason Momoa go to Twitter or go to Instagram, screaming his excitement of a Maestro and a dream job. And then a couple days later, after the internet collectively lost their minds thinking he was playing Lobo or Zack was coming back, he said quietly in another interview, I think it was with a Screen Crush or something of that nature, and he told them that it's not Zack, it's not DC, that we need to think bigger. So it's that's unrelated. So I think we can all firmly move on from that until something else happens. But since James Gunn has taken charge, we know that the last week he and Peter Safran made their 10-year plan. They have it. The outline is done. They're going to present it within the next couple months, according to them. But he has been quietly teasing things all over social media. Like he went on social media, he teased Lobo. He went on to, I think just even yesterday on Hive, he teased Kingdom Come. He's also teased, who else has he teased? He teased a few other characters. Mr. Terrific, he teased on one day. There's been a lot of these random little teases, and it's just kind of pointing out that he's looking a wide net. It's not just one little thing, but it's a lot of, it's not just like, it's not what the previous management was doing, where everything has to be Batman, everything has to be Superman, everything has to be Wonder Woman. He is casting a very wide net, including those key characters, but also including characters that have not been utilized.
So it could be a lot of fun. They have so many to choose from. They have such a wealth of characters that they can do stuff with. And they don't all have to have cinematic entrances. You can have some in Peacemaker too. You can have other, you know what I mean? You can have them show up in these other places.
Yeah. And it's interesting because prior to the merger, the previous plans that I had heard before James took over and everything got retooled was that he was working on a Checkmate project, and he wanted to bring Firestorm and Captain Atom also into his projects and kind of flesh out some of that stuff. But who knows if that's even still on the game board anymore, because he's obviously thinking a lot bigger now and things have changed. So we will see what happens.
Can we make the 10-year plan right now? Like with the information that's given to us, Superman's coming back.
Sure.
Superman's coming back. Aquaman's coming back. Wonder Woman is coming back. Okay. Does Ben Affleck's Batman come back?
So that's another thing that came up, was that there was a lot of chatter saying that that David Zaslav only wants one Batman in the main continuity. So this whole notion that there was going to be Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck simultaneously existing, he doesn't want that. He wants just one Batman. So whether or not that means...
well, Robert Pattinson, welcome to the big leagues, bro. Put your suit on.
That's actually not the case, because Matt Reeves' contract allowed him to basically be DC Black. So Pattinson's universe is a pocket universe that will exist separately to the DCU. So what he's referring to as the main crossover universe. So there'll probably be two Batmen, one in the DC Black stuff and one in the the main one, but there's not going to be like Keaton and Affleck together as two Batmans. Or there's not going to be Keaton and some new protege. It's not going to be something like that. It's going to be just one Batman that faces off with Superman and Wonder Woman and all them.
Shazam comes back. Shazam's family comes back. Do they got to kill off some of those kids, or do they just go fight? They just find a better villain for them to fight.
I think they're probably going to like split up a little bit. Like they're probably going to be like, oh, Mary Marvel went off to college, or this character left here. Like things are going to slowly separate them, but they'll bring them back when the time is necessary. But I see it doing it that way for a little bit.
Does Blue Beetle go to the main roster, or do you think we get a B team out of this?
I think we're probably going to get a B team, or even like a live action Titans. Like I could see Blue Beetle being part of like a Titans team or the Justice League Junior team or something like that, right? I don't see him joining.
Let's say they do a cinematic Teen Titans, and let's say they change a bunch of stuff. Absolutely, Blue Beetle is there, but does Blue Beetle replace Cyborg? Maybe. And then this is where you introduce Ben Affleck's Robin, right? Like you have, and you can even have it be Nightwing.
Yeah, you could introduce a Nightwing or something. I mean, you can retcon a lot of stuff. I mean, with the Flash movie, we know that the Flash movie was going to be ending with a weird kind of a half soft reboot, where initially it was going to be like a harder reboot, but now it's going to be like a less hard reboot. So we know that Superman's going to be there, but Supergirl's going to be brought into the mix. We know Batman's there, Wonder Woman, all the key players are still there.
Supergirl could be on this Teen Titans squad.
But one of the many things they could retcon is the fact that which Robin died, essentially.
Yeah.
Because Zack's Robin was Dick Grayson, and that was the Robin that died.
Yeah.
But they can retcon it saying, no, it was Jason Todd, because of how Ben's Batman moved on. Here's Nightwing. Here's this. Like, they're going to kind of bring the Robins into the live action movie verse. So we'll see what they do there. They'd be kind of fun. But I mean, aside from all that, we also got these other little snippets. We heard these rumors that Ezra Miller's probably not going to survive the culling, and he's probably going to be transformed by the Speed Force in some capacity. And that's what the rumors are saying. But then we'll get into the next bit. We know that Amy Adams just the other day said that she has not heard anything about Superman. That she heard Henry's coming back from her husband. But on that same note, Henry still currently does not have a contract outside of his single appearance from Black Adam. They're still working on his franchise plan so that they can make a contract once the plan is put forward.
So he's done. So he literally, it is a handshake deal. They said, we want
right
you.
Now it is.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. Right now it's a handshake deal, but from what everyone is saying is that the moment the plan is turned in, then they say, okay, so to do this plan, we need X amount of movies. This is how many we're going to sign you for. And that's where it's going to go. But they need to have that plan first before they sign anything.
When you say how many movies, does this include this new Man of Steel movie, a Justice League movie, and then he shows up in Aquaman 3? Or are we talking like he gets 3 movies and then all that other stuff is just sprinkles on top of the cupcake?
I think that's where they're going to iron out eventually. I mean, he wants his movies. And then we know that there's also the studio wanting the crossover movies. And we also know the studio wants cameos. So there's going to be a lot of pen to paper when it comes to it. So all the news is that it hasn't happened yet because the plan is still being ironed out.
Here's a crazy thing. Do you think now that they have Henry Cavill, they'll go back and reshoot that scene from Shazam and put him in the first Shazam movie I
would love if DC, I have always said this, like I am not overly critical of when directors go out and fix mistakes. Like when George Lucas went back and kind of re-edited the Star Wars trilogy, I don't have an issue with it. I'm not some purist who says it has to be the original grainy. Well, no. Like if the director is not satisfied, let them tinker. I mean, we wouldn't have gotten the Blade Runner final cut if they didn't let people tinker with their projects after they were done. So I personally would love.
I would have disagreed with you until a couple of years ago. I saw that movie, The People vs. George Lucas, and they absolutely made that argument of like, Star Wars is his. It all came out of his brain based on all these other influences. So if he wants to tinker with this movie, that's his card. He can do whatever he wants with it.
Yeah, and so on that same note, I would love like Warner Brothers or New Line to go and let Peter Jackson tinker with the Lord of the Rings 6 movies and kind of mesh them together, because obviously they gave a second Bilbo Baggins, so throw that scene into the original trilogy so it kind of makes it all uniform, so it doesn't look janky when you're watching all 6 movies in a row. Like, let them clean it up, and do the same thing for DC. Give Henry an actual cameo with his face in Shazam. Let's get all of this correctly. And same thing with her Peacemaker. Finish that little scene at the end and like sprinkle in Gal, sprinkle in Henry, add Cyborg and Batman back to it. Like, do all of that. Like, you have the tools. It's like, it's no different than when Game of Thrones would edit a Starbucks cup out of the scene. Just do it. Don't say anything and put it in the stream. Throw it out in the ether and let people see it afterwards.
I can't believe they left that Starbucks cup in. I can't believe that show at that time, on top of all the problems that it had, allowed a Starbucks cup. And it was like a perfect Starbucks cup as well. It looked so pristine.
Yeah, it was like white with the green and like the little, it was like, when people saw it, they're like, okay, so Daenerys is a time traveler. But at the same time, they did the same thing in the House of the Dragon. There was one shot that the internet stormed over when the king, the actor, they left his green screen pinky sleeves on. So he's like handing something to someone, you can see like his green fingers, and they're like, crap, and then they cleaned it out. So they re-uploaded it after the premiere, and then it was gone. But it happens, so just let them do it more. I'm 100% okay with them cleaning up some of these continuity errors that way. Let's do it.
And then does the rest of this timeline just depend on contracts? Like, Gal Gadot is going to do another Wonder Woman movie, but does she want to keep being Wonder Woman in a Justice League movie?
I think it depends on who the director is, who the project is. I think a lot of these heroes, they know that they're wanted, and they know that, like Jason Momoa, I don't see for a second him saying, I'm done with Aquaman forever, because Aquaman is like, he knows that people love him for that. It's like, it's really hard to turn away from that.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing with Gal Gadot and even Ben Affleck, for instance. Like Ben Affleck, there was a lot of like fear that came out just the other day. But I'll kind of get into something. Part of the stuff that is happening behind the scenes. So Ben Affleck and Matt Damon have finally come together 2 days ago and started their own production company. They are finally doing it after their entire careers of saying they were going to do it.
Does Matt Damon want to make superhero movies?
But that's the thing. So Ben says flat out, this is my next act of my career for a very long time. And a lot of people said, oh, that means he's out. That's it, right? Because he started this new production company, and why would he not work on his production? But that's not the case, right? So from the rumblings behind the scene is that to make DC successful, to make Warner Brothers Discovery successful, they're looking at bringing on outside production companies to help co-op on certain projects.
Right.
So it's essentially like what happened with Zack Snyder's Justice League, and Zack Snyder's production company, the Stone Quarry, was part of it. And same with Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman 84. When they went in, Stone Quarry came in and fixed a lot of the errors. And mind you, the version that we got was still pretty janky, but if they went in and tried to fix things after the fact, I don't even want to know what the original cut looked like. But they are going front and center and bringing in more production companies to help co-op these projects. So I don't for a second think that that's a signal that Ben is done and he's out forever. But it also means that if Ben is going to continue, he's going to have a very vocal say in everything he does from here on out because of his production company. He won't sign unless his production company is signed, and he won't just say, oh, I like that script as it is. He will be like, no. Just like the Flash movie, where Ben came in and part of his conditions for coming back was be able to rewrite some of his scenes. It's going to be like that on a bigger scale of anything he's involved in.
Mm.
So I think there's a lot of stuff that they do have to work out. So we'll see what happens. But on top of all that, let's get in.
Where does Green Lantern fit on all of this? Do they bring back Ryan Reynolds? Can't come back. Ryan Reynolds is too big and he's doing his own stuff. Where does Green Lantern fit into all of this? Do you think he gets his own movie?
The Green Lantern show originally, the Green Lantern Corps was going to be a show that was going to tie itself into the Green Lantern Corps movie. The movie focusing on Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, and the show focusing on the other Lanterns. We now know that those plans have been completely scrapped, and the show is now going to be its own thing, and it's going to focus on Jon Stewart. And so what does that mean for the main DC? We don't know. I mean, we know that Green Lantern is coming. The show could tie itself into the universe, and Jon Stewart from that show could carry over. But it also means that they could bring in Hal Jordan or Kyle Rayner into the movies and have Jon as the show, and then have them cross over that way. Or they can bring in other characters like literally any of the other lanterns. There's so many other lanterns they can pick from. They can bring those into the movies, and then make references to the show, and the show can tell part of that story. Kind of like how Peacemaker is sequel to the Suicide Squad, and is going to fill in some gaps there. They could do the same thing with Green Lantern, but I'm sure, for 100% sure, that James Gunn has a plan for Green Lantern. I just don't know what it is. And that's kind of the point at hand, is that James Gunn recently went to the Twitter sphere and started calling people out. Someone said some people are claiming that they know who will be the DCU Batman. Do you already decided, or are they bullshitting? I love the bad English there. Do you already decided? He flats out says anyone who says they know anything about anything in the future of DC is bullshitting, because right now that is truly only me and Peter. And then it was like hours later, someone asked another question. He said, it was like the next day, he said, I think I answered this yesterday, but no, unless someone is wiretapping me and Peter's private conversations, no one knows about any project or casting beyond what's already been filmed or filming besides us. So he calls out the super universe.
Yeah, right. No, they haven't pitched anything. There's no contracts. They've said a name, and it's on a piece of paper in their bedrooms right now.
Right. It's like anyone who said that they've seen Kevin Feige's office and sees his grand timeline. No, what people are making now is educated guesses. There's no insider info, because until the actual plan is presented to the producing team and Zaslav, that plan is under lock and key behind the two people who wrote it. So nothing is leaking right now.
Right. A ton of stuff has to get approved. Multiple films, lot spaces. I mean, this is a big moving train, and that hasn't even started moving yet.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, what we know, like snippets, right? We know things that are like made public knowledge. We know that Peter Safran and David Zaslav sat down with Chris Nolan and Steven Spielberg to talk about the future of DC. That's all we know about that. We know that, and that's it. I mean, really, we don't know anything else. I mean, but aside from all of this, another somewhat distressing bit of news for a lot of fans was over the last couple weeks, Zack Snyder went to a Philadelphia radio station at the 93.3 WMMA Philadelphia radio station, the Preston and Steve Show. And they asked, what's going on with the DCU? Is he coming back? What's he going on? And he said flat out, well, as far as I know, which is very little, I'm doing my thing. And I haven't had anyone give me a call or anything. So I'm just wishing them all the best and hoping that they make some cool movies. And then they kind of go on and said, I mean, I'm glad that I have you guys, your support. That's very kind. The truth be told, I'm having an amazing time making this giant movie I'm working on. And I couldn't be happier. So I really wish them all the best. Right?
Yeah. He went from the old studio and fighting all of these battles to a new studio that lets him just casually show off the giant drop ship in the background of a TikTok video talking to the competition. Like, yeah. This is something that you've been saying for a while. He's very happy with what he's doing. So I think this is them parting ways.
Yeah. And mind you, I mean, I heard back at the end of July from people that were actually in Zack's company. And it was not just one person. It was like a group of people that were in Zack's house, having lunch with them, having a good old time. And he told them all flat out, I haven't got a call, and that's totally fine because I'm happy. And they were like, what? That means we're still with the Snyderverse campaign? And he basically was like, you guys can campaign if you want, but I'm happy where I'm at. So if the call comes later on the line, yeah, maybe he'll come back. Maybe he'll pick up the phone call and say, yes, hell yes, I'll be back. But right now, no call has been made, and Zack is very happy and very busy with Netflix, because we know that he's wrapping Rebel Moon Part 1 this month, and then he's got Rebel Moon Part 2.
Rebel Moon Part 1. Okay, yeah. So there's another movie that's coming.
Yeah, and then we've got Rebel Moon Part 2 that's coming. We have Army of the Dead Las Vegas, the animated miniseries that should be coming out soon. It was supposed to already come out now, but it's not out yet. So that's still being worked on. We have an Army of the Dead sequel. We have his various other projects he want to work on. I think, was it Horse Latitudes was one of them that he wants to work on. Like, he has a full dance card for a few years, even before this year's giant Rebel Moon shoot. So
Right.
we'll see what he does. But I think realistically, if we look at it realistically, Zack is happy where he's at Netflix. He's busy where he's at Netflix. And say his dance card frees him up in 2024. Say he's able to come back and they call him. It's not going to be the same plan. It's not going to be the same Justice League 2. It's not going to be any of that.
It can't be, because they're going to move forward, and whatever happens in season 2 of Peacemaker, whatever happens in the next Suicide Squad movie, and now we know with James Gunn at the helm that all of these things are going to be just pieces of a puzzle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those things haven't even started happening yet. So yeah, okay.
It'd be like right now asking Jon Favreau to go back and direct Iron Man 4. It's like,
right.
Maybe if it's a side project that's not connected to anything, maybe that's what they'll do with Zack. But at the same time, how much older are all these characters? I mean, you wouldn't be able to do the time travel aspect where he was trying to put them in the nightmare timeline and then bring them back to the present timeline, and then it would just be an Elseworld story that's set 6-7 years in the future.
Sure.
Because that's the realistic. They've all aged about 6-7 years, and then you have with Amy Adams, who hasn't got a call, and says that she's happy to return, but she's also very more than okay with being recast. Like, we'll see what happens, but I don't think that for a second that people who are saying that, oh, Zack is coming back next year, he's happy. Mm-hmm. And then to kind of add the icing onto all of that, he went to Twitter the other day and dropped a very nice thank you to everybody. Said, Autumn used to sign everything with this quote: "The goal is not to live forever, but to create something that does. All of you that made JL real, honor her. Not only by your massive fundraising effort for mental health, but by having a hand in creating something that will live forever. And for that, I am eternally grateful."
Yeah, and I interpret it,
that's him closing the door, right? Like, that's how I see it.
But
like,
they're also they're closing the door, but they're also closing the door, but they're also using the house that he built. The fact that all of these conversations are going after Henry Cavill and going back and talking to Ben Affleck, they obviously are going to be using the pieces that were set up. And it doesn't sound like we're getting a universe. I don't feel like they're wiping or flushing that old universe down. I think we might get new and different things, but those characters are going to continue on in their current form, the way that he set them up. And I think that's a beautiful testament to what he created.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm like hating on Zack. I've loved Zack's movies since we were in high school, since we saw Dawn of the Dead. I thought he was fantastic. I was blown away by 300. I was blown away by Watchmen. Everything that he's done, I've been a huge fan of. I've always felt that Zack Snyder is like, say you have ultimate style, which is Michael Bay, and ultimate substance, which is Chris Nolan, and you have Zack Snyder, who's right in the middle.
Right.
I always felt that that's what we get. We have this great style, this unique style, and we have this massive substance that he throws in hard into his projects that go over people's heads. Like Batman v Superman, when Batman throws Superman through the wall, the crack in the wall is shaped like Ontario, the place where the creators of Superman are from. Like, he throws Easter eggs after Easter eggs into these projects because he has an eye for the meticulous detail.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. So I think that DC and Zack are not mutually exclusive. They do exist separately. They can exist separately. And I want them to continue. I do want them to work together in the future. I would love to see James Gunn and Peter Safran make DC successful. And if Zack has a place in that success later on, give him the call, make it happen. But I'm not going to boycott every DC project because I'm bitter that Zack moved on years ago.
Do we know when James Gunn's homework is due, and when do they present this plan to Warner Brothers Discovery? I'm assuming it's going to be Q1. I don't think anything's happening for the next 6 weeks, right?
From my understanding, he said that he's going to give the plan in the next couple of months, is what one of the tweets said. But he is also still locked in with Marvel. He's got the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas show coming out on Friday, and then he's got Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and the studio knows that once he's done with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, he's done with Marvel. So when does Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 come out? I mean, that's kind of the
Do we have a date? Right? Do we have a date for when that's
We do have a date.
Okay.
We do understand that Volume 3 of Guardians is coming out in May of 2023. So we know that at the very least, the end of May 2023 is when he is 100% full-time DC.
Which also means that these other projects that I'm talking about, like Peacemaker or, the next Suicide Squad movie, they're not happening until after of May of 2023, correct?
Not quite, actually, because when the Suicide Squad came out, he was actually filming Guardians 3. Like, he locked his schedule so tight that once it was cut and was finally done, he immediately jumped to the new project. So the moment that picture lock is done for Guardians 3, that's it. Like, he's still going to be working on DC. He's going to be focusing a ton on DC. Then when the press tour comes and he needs to be there for Marvel, he will be. But his 100% attention will not be on DC until end of May, beginning of June.
Okay. And that also makes sense that if they want to start going forward with any of these projects, that he needs a different production company because he can't be there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why they have James and Peter, because, I mean, you can't have someone working full-time on the project if he's still obligated elsewhere. So having two people means Peter can have these conversations with Chris Nolan and Steven Spielberg while James is still finishing his Marvel stuff.
Oh, hold on. I'm an idiot. I thought May of 2023 was a year away. That's right around
that's like 5 months from now.
Yeah. And then you told me Guardians 3 has already been filmed. Oh, okay then. Yeah, then okay. So then
it's like done.
So do you think June of 2023 he starts working on? Do you really think it's going to be that quick of a turnaround?
He's already working full time. He's already working like 60 to 70, maybe 80% of his time on DC right now. He's still working on his Marvel stuff too, but most of his focus is on DC, and he's still doing what he can. I think that's why there's two of them. So I think the moment, like I said, the moment picture lock is done and editing is done and everything's ready to go, maybe February, March, maybe April, he'll start working on whatever he's doing next for DC filming. He'll take a brief break, do the press stuff for Guardians, and then focus solely on DC from then on out. But
has he talked plans for next Suicide Squad movie? Has he talked plans for Peacemaker? I mean, Peacemaker has an alien species on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, they're dealing with crazy big stuff.
Yeah. From what I heard was that the original plans he was involving Checkmate, and it was going to be like Amanda Waller hunting down these people, but plans change. I mean, he can think bigger now.
Yeah.
So I think whatever his plans were before, like you said, nobody knows anything now because whatever was in production before, whatever plans were there before, that's it.
Any long shot predictions for heroes? You think Plastic Man finally makes its way to the world?
I do. I think with some of the teases that I heard, I mean, he obviously wants to use something with Lobo. He wants to use Mr. Terrific. He clearly sounds like JSA is going to be a little bit bigger. We've got the rumor that I heard about Firestorm and Captain Atom. Those would be a lot of fun characters to see on film. I could see a lot of stuff like that. Like that's my prediction is that let's go hard into DC. Let's flesh out Star Labs. Let's bring us some more of these weird characters. Let's bring us some more of these alien characters.
Sure.
James Gunn seems to be pulling a lot of his comic knowledge from the 70s and 80s, like when he was a kid, and when he was like a deep teenage nerd into DC. So I could see a lot of those characters who were very big in the comics in the 70s and 80s coming out on screen very quickly.
Well, I wish him nothing but success, and the DC fandom is hungry for him to start. So, May 2023 can't come fast enough.
It can. I mean, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm glad that Henry is back, and that they're wanting to continue more Superman there. I'm glad that we have just a universe that's moving forward. And I would love to see all of it come back. I would love to see Zack's universe spiritually continue and us have all of those characters and then just more added to it. I would love that. And who knows, what if at the end of the Flash movie that new slightly modified universe that they're giving birth to does change some casting. Maybe we do get a new Lois Lane, new Lex Luthor, and a few other new people. Maybe that's what happens. But just because one thing is happening doesn't mean the stuff that came before didn't happen as well. It's like the Star Trek movie,
Sure.
right? It came as a new timeline, a new universe, a new branch in the grand multiverse of the timelines, and it still meant that everything before still existed. It just means that this is something new that will feel a little familiar.
Yeah,
So,
and I like that. You know, it would be sad if it did pan out that way, but I'm also like, okay, like get people that are passionate about these projects, and if people aren't getting phone calls, they're going to feel a certain way. Just let them move forward.
yeah. And then on top of that, I know that a few weeks back when he did say that he basically acknowledged the Ayer cut and then kind of said we're moving forward. Somebody called out David Ayer on Twitter, basically for defending James Gunn. Said, "What's with the bromance, David? Is he going to release your cut, or do you still want it? We are hashtagging like crazy, but you've gone silent. Should we stop or what?" And David responded, "He's always been a good guy. He's always been incredibly respectful to me. And as for my cut, of course I want it seen. And I believe that there's a real shot at it. It just won't be tomorrow." And then James Gunn replied to David Ayer's comment. "I'll second what David said about him, both inside and out of Twitter. Yes, we communicate outside of Twitter. Believe it or not, our DNA does not begin with an @ symbol." He acknowledged everything David said, and David still believes there's a chance for the Ayer cut to move forward. There's still a chance for all of this other stuff to exist, but DC has to be profitable before they can start making the fun stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
Marvel made its grand MCU. Phase 1 wasn't truly profitable until the Avengers came out. And then once the Avengers came out, then they made Phase 2. Then they got weird and kept going with it. And now we have stuff like Man-Thing showing up on Werewolf by Night. They can afford the weird shit because of all the success they've had elsewhere. DC has to have that option too.
yeah, and you can do Man-Thing because you have Wakanda Forever hitting theaters. You know what I mean? Like that. You know what I mean? Like that's where it's like, yeah, that might not be that profitable, but that other thing is.
And Disney is going through its own changes right now, right? I mean, Bob Iger,
He's back, baby. He's back.
He took back over, right? Like it was like an 11th hour, middle of the night. Fire the other Bob and bring the good Bob back. And they just
said effective immediately. Like he walked back into his office and said, "I'm taking over, baby."
Yeah, and I mean, he got this crazy high, like $30+ million salary, and apparently that was a smaller salary than what they offered him because he wanted some of the funds to go back into fixing some of the damage, which is insane.
Do you think, well, I mean, I wonder what like, I know what is going to change. We're not going to get Pinocchio again. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to get Tom Hanks Pinocchio again, but I wonder what he sees as the direction of all of this. I wonder if he's going to change some of the choices they made in the MCU. I wonder if he wants a plan for Star Wars. I wonder if he wants if he's thinking streaming only, because, you know, Disney's in a very interesting spot at this moment.
It's a very interesting spot. And I think a lot of people understand that you can kind of see both sides of the aisle on this one, on the political spectrum, that since Bob, was it Chapek or I don't know how to pronounce that guy's last name. Since he took over, he basically allowed all of the political arguments to be said within these children's movies. And it was alienating a lot of people. And when you have a company like this and you have a fan base that is a global fan base, you have to allow almost a bipartisan view of everything. Because if you're going to say one thing in a political stance, you're going to piss off a giant chunk of an audience. So you have to be neutral and respectful. And Bob Iger was always kind of that.
And I feel
right?
like we're only talking about American audiences now. I don't feel
Yeah.
like we're even talking. There's been a crazy walking away from China, and it's happening in movies. Blizzard is pulling out of China. So I wonder if this is not like if they're going to get out of this market altogether, and it's going to change American movies, probably for the better.
I hope so. I hope so, because I mean, in recent weeks, the Chinese government basically banned all foreign films, and thus killing any intake that Black Adam would have had over there. And they were really hoping that China would bring in a lot of money, but it's not happening. It's not being released out there, and so neither is Wakanda Forever or anything else Marvel is doing. So now that these companies no longer have to pander to China's weird rules, we may see these projects just go for the better, right? Because
Yeah.
China had all these really silly rules, like you can't make any references that may be derogatory toward our communist leader. You can't have any skull imagery. You can't
They
have
took Chadwick Boseman off the Black Panther poster and made it be the thing. They took Finn off the Star Wars poster. They made him smaller. So like
yeah.
that's yeah. I mean, you want to talk about why Finn all of a sudden disappears into Nothingville in the later Star Wars movies? I wonder if it had something to do with China, and they ruined an entire character because of it.
A character that could have, should have, and the franchise would have greatly benefited from making him a Jedi from the square one.
Yes, 100%. He had Force feelings. He was connecting with Rey on a deeper level.
I mean, it's even in canon. Like, even in canon, they've acknowledged that Finn was Force sensitive, that he woke out of his programming because of the Force, that he was feeling the Force. He felt right. Like, we knew that he was going to be a Jedi one day. We just never got it because probably China.
It's real gross. It's real gross. You know, I that's not that's not the main problem with that movie, of course. But when you hear that these companies bow down over the NBA won't talk back to the Chinese government. It's like, oh, okay. So who are your bedfellows? And I don't know if it'll change these movies. I hope it does.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I hope it does too.
Unfortunately, I mean, the MCU is on whatever message the MCU is saying, it's not done saying it yet. It's going to be a while before we get to the next batch of stuff. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I think going forward, I think the realistic approach is that everything is going to be, I think with Bob Iger at the helm, I think it's going to be less political, less angry on either side, right? It's going to just be, this company has standed for about 100 years now, almost however long it's been. It's not quite 100, maybe like 80 years now. This company has gone this long.
It's getting close to. I know it's not 100 years, but they changed all the laws so Mickey Mouse wouldn't be public domain. So it feels like 100 years.
Yeah, right. I mean, but like what we know is that, I mean, Warner Brothers is hitting its 100 years pretty soon. And Disney started in like the 40s and 50s, right? Like in that region. I don't know.
A little before then. Yeah, they did that Oswald Lucky Rabbit, and then the 30s, something around there.
But like, the company has survived that long because it never really alienated its fan base. Yes, it grew with the times, it existed with the times, but it never outrightly did anything political to piss off giant majorities of its fan base. And we saw that with Lightyear, right?
Right.
Because of Florida's bill about keeping gay content out of schools, they specifically put in a scene with gay characters, and the entire fan base that was Republican leaning or conservative leaning or anything like that just said, nah, we'll just not see this movie. And it bombed hard. It turned into one of Pixar's biggest bombs of its entire catalog.
I mean, if you want to talk about something Bob Iger can do tomorrow, let's get Pixar making good movies again. There have been good movies, and if your family happens to love Good Dinosaur, like great, your kids are allowed to like it. It's a garbage movie though, and there's been a couple of these Pixar movies that feel not up to snuff with the original movies.
Right, and they've had some good ones, but under the previous Bob, he put them straight on Disney Plus. Like Encanto should have been in theaters, and it became Disney Plus, and it was far better than the other stuff that they put out in theaters. Aside from that,
Encanto blew up so big too. I can't believe they missed out on that. That wasn't a theatrical.
Yeah.
I bet they did release it in theaters afterwards, but then it's like a sing along.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's so many movies that they put out that should have had more love and more focus that they didn't. But
I know that
then
the
you have,
team was mad that Red didn't get to go to theaters. They felt very passionate about that movie.
and that movie was super funny.
Yeah.
I'm not Chinese, nor do I have little Chinese kids, but I thought that movie was hilarious.
Yeah.
My wife really connected with like movies like from Mexico, like movies like Coco and Encanto, but she loved Red, Turning Red solely because of like the early 2000s boy band craze, and she was like, "That's like me." So
Yeah.
that movie was funny.
I mean, that's you are a parent, Taylor. The parents in movies are going to be your age with references towards your kids.
Yeah. But I think the bottom line is that Disney is changing, and you're not going to see things like Star Wars' Galaxy Cruiser, because that was one of the biggest failures of the previous guy. But you're going to see more of, let's go back to what was working and let's focus on what works properly.
Yeah, and it's going to be more Mandalorian. I mean, it's going to be stuff like that. I mean, Mandalorian is the biggest splash in all of that.
From my understanding, it sounds like Disney and Warner Brothers are doing the same thing right now. They are now allowing creators to have their voices. They're bringing them in, allowing them to have a say in these projects, and encouraging that say. And with James Gunn and Peter Safran at the helm of DC, it definitely sounds like they're going to be moving forward in a way that's going to be very creator friendly. They're going to try to attract as many people as they can with that we're not going to micromanage you kind of a job style. Like, we have our plan, we will have our plan, we will work with you to make your project fit within that plan, but it's still your project.
There's just
We're not going to pull.
There's just a lot of people paying for content right now. Like, for example, did you watch Apple TV's Spirited?
I'm going to. It looks funny.
Oh, Taylor, it is funny, and it's really good, and it walks that line of a good PG. Like, it's not PG-13, it's right on that line, but it's funny, it moves well, the songs are great, and it's like, oh, this could have gone anywhere else, but Apple paid for it. And they got Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds to give great performances. You know what I mean? No. Yeah, Spirited is waiting for you right now, and it's great. And feels way much better than HBO Max's The Christmas Story.
Story.
Is it The Christmas Story or is it The Christmas Story Christmas?
One of the two. I don't know. I was planning on watching all of these holiday movies after Thanksgiving and just going nuts with it. Like, I told my wife that.
I don't have children, so we're already, I mean, hopefully don't fall off the internet. Don't fall off the internet. We're already got Christmas up at my house, baby. We already live our best life. I told my wife that
she is not, I'm not putting up Christmas lights and we're not decorating until Friday. Like, that's my line, is that once Thanksgiving is over, let's like holly jolly this bitch. Like, I understand that, like, but she's like, she already pulled all the boxes out of the garage. She's got all the decorations ready to go. She's got her, like, everything's holstered and ready. And I'm like, Friday.
If you watch those two movies, and then we probably have to watch the Lindsay Lohan movie, we can have a whole Christmas episode. We got it. I've already watched 2 of the 3.
Yeah. And did you see HBO's Christmas movie from last year, the 8-Bit Christmas? Watch that one. It's pretty great.
Oh, that one was fabulous. That movie, but see, that movie felt that okay. Watch the new Christmas Story movie, because then we can talk about it. Because there's some stuff in the movie I don't like, but then there's some really good bits in the movie. So okay, we can save that for another episode.
We'll probably do a Christmas stream in a week or so. A couple of weeks.
Ooh, maybe we get the ladies on. Maybe your wife tells us what she thinks about these movies.
No, she will not come on the show. She says that whenever we interview people with actors, she'll come in and say hi, but she doesn't want to be on camera. She's very like, no, thank you.
Sounds like my wife. She also doesn't want to do this at all. We tried to do a podcast with her. It failed miserably.
I've known your wife for over 10 years, and every time we're recording, she pops in, hey, and I'm like, hey, you can say hi for more than 2 seconds.
She runs away. She's not home right now, so there's nowhere to pop out.
But no, we kind of just wasted a good chunk of time there. But bottom line, it definitely sounds like Zack has moved on from DC, for better or for worse. That's where it is. James Gunn has a plan. The 10-year plan is in writing in some capacity. An outline has been made. But he's also calling out publicly every scooper who says they know anything about this plan, because unless it's The Flash, Black Adam, Shazam 2, or Blue Beetle, it's all being made up, according to him.
Yeah.
Because nothing else beyond those movies has actually been presented or been leaked or been revealed or anything. So we don't know a thing about anything beyond the movies of next year, essentially.
Yeah.
That's when they're all coming out. We're going to have a busy DC for 2023.
Are they all quarter 1? Are they all summer movies?
No, they're everywhere.
Okay.
We have, let's see, 2023. I'm just going to pull them up real fast because there is 4 or 5 movies that are coming up just next year. And we got Shazam in March. We've got, let's see, we got Shazam in March. We got The Flash in June, Blue Beetle in August, and Aquaman in December.
Yeah, that's a full year of movies. That's the full slate of stuff. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Once a quarter, we get a DC movie. And hooray. We've had a drought, and I'm ready for that drought to end. So let's get this happening. And
then they start shooting the movies for 2024.
Oh, they'll start probably by June. They'll probably have something ready to start going.
Do you think do you know what that will be? Do you think that will be the Superman movie, or do you think it'll be something else?
I think at the least we'll probably have something else. I mean, we know the Joker 2 is filming currently, and that's probably going to come out just the following year. But aside from that,
that's going to be October. They're going to do another it's a spooky movie. You know what I mean? They'll do some date like that.
We'll probably get something kind of out in left field, more than likely. But I don't know. Maybe we'll get Black Adam 2, Shazam 3, or something of that nature, or Man of Steel 2, Wonder Woman 3, maybe finally be unmothballed and put back into the slate. We'll see what happens.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you want to support us and help us keep the lights on and keep recording, head over to patreon.com/theculturednerd. We have various benefits for those who do want to support and help us out. So please join us. And again, my name has been Taylor Murphy. I'm the host. My co-host Michael Santel, and our wonderful set of 11 Patreon supporters. Thank you all for helping us out.
And stickers are in the mail. Thank you all for supporting us. We appreciate you all so much.
Yeah, and I did mail off a bunch already. And for everyone who hasn't got theirs yet, check your email because I messaged you asking for your info. So
they're great stickers.
On that,
Taylor. They're really good stickers.
All right, yeah, put them up again.
They're really good stickers. They're big old honkin' boy stickers.
Yeah, I mean, I have my big old hydro flask that has full up all my Justice League stuff and my big old TCN thing on there. But yeah, a bunch of Zack Snyder quotes and stuff like that. But yeah,
all the
big stickers. I think it's a 3x3 inch sticker, like the big one. The other ones are a little smaller.
It's
good.
But
thank you all for joining us. If you're watching this from home and on your TV, go ahead and scan that QR code and support us on all of our various platforms. We are officially also now on Hive because apparently Twitter is everyone on Twitter believes it's collapsing, so everyone's migrating over to Hive. So I jumped on that yesterday to make sure we wouldn't lose the screen name.
Great job, Tate. Thanks for getting us on Hive.
We are on that. It's kind of fun. Hive is this weird perverse love child between Twitter and Instagram.
It's the end of the show, Taylor. Save it for another day. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.